Hello, Pastor Stan Lubeck here. So glad that you've joined us. We're going to talk today about how to obtain a God-sized dream. What funner experience can you have than considering the dream that God has for your life? And, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to do this. So I just want to invite you to listen in and consider each of these 8 steps to God-sized dreams. You know, it's been said that nothing begins without a dream. Isn't that true? Somebody has to dream it before it ever becomes reality. So it makes sense that we ask about how we can imagine and realize God-sized dreams. You know, Jesus healed a man who was blind, and it didn't happen all at once. At first, his vision was still a bit blurry, and I think this is an example of the process that we all go through to understand and appreciate and acquire the vision that God has for our lives. In Mark 8:24 and 25, we see how Jesus healed this guy, and it says at first he looked up and said, "I see people, but they look like trees walking." Then Jesus laid hands on his eyes again, and he opened his eyes. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. So this might be a process. It might take you some time, but the goal is to experience what God has for you. You know, the thing I love most about this, God cares more about your dream for your life than you do. And so like those Polaroid self-developing cameras, when the photo first spits out, the image is a little bit faint, and then over time it becomes more and more clear. Few can see the dream in all its implications from the beginning, but over time the dream becomes crystal clear. And that's what my prayer is for you. So here are the principles to start the dream process. Number 1, you need to ask God for His assignment. What is His dream for your life? In Luke 2:42, Jesus is saying, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me." In other words, Jesus wasn't so excited about the dream that God the Father had for him, but what did he say? "Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done." In college, I had a statement over my desk. Put yourself in God's place. Stop and think, what on earth does God want me to be doing? What is God's assignment for me? My friend Dave Bizarre died of cancer. While he was still alive, people asked him if he questioned God for allowing him to have cancer. Dave's response was priceless, and it still is to this day. He said, "No, I never questioned God. This is His assignment for me on this earth. I would never choose to go to minister to people in the hospital on my own, but God has given me this assignment, and now my car knows how to drive there all by itself." Dave would take his guitar to the chemo ward and sing Christmas carols. And you had to imagine seeing all these nurses come in to be with those that were on chemo, singing Christmas carols as the nurses were crying and tears were flowing down their eyes. Dave was bringing a bit of heaven to earth in the midst of his assignment. So God is the ultimate dream giver. So begin by praying and listening and paying attention. God alone is the one who has your dream, and you need to ask, seek, and knock. God cares about your dream more than you do, so ask for God-sized dreams coming from the heart of God. It doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy assignment. It wasn't for Dave Bissard. Ask yourself the question, is my motive to exalt God, or is it to exalt myself? Do I want a God-sized dream so I can take credit for it? Too often people come up with a dream on their own, then they ask God to bless their plans. They then blame God when the dream fails. God never promises to bless man-made dreams, but you can be sure that He wants to bless those who are serious about God-sized dreams that are dreamed for His glory. The second thing we need to do is to define reality. Max Dupree says the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. You cannot figure out where you need to go until you identify where you are. Every rest stop on the highway has a map with a little red arrow and the words, "You are here." Why? Because a map is useless until you know your location on the map. You must confront reality for where you are before you can dream of where you need to go. Status quo has been defined by some as the mess that we are in. Evaluate your life. What's right? What's wrong? What's missing? What's confusing? God will bring clarity to your life as you seek Him. So face the fear of failure. Get to work. Courage is about acting despite your fears. Everyone has fear, but not everyone takes action. So Step out to see your dream become a reality in spite of your fears and insecurities. Don't be the guy who buried his talents because of fear and dishonored God. Be willing to risk and face down your fears and step out by faith. When you know that God has called you to the dream, doesn't matter what the naysayers and the critics have to say, you have what you need to move forward. The third thing, once you've assessed where you are, you need to assess your options. The more information you have, the better decisions you will make on God's dream for your life. So write out all the options that you might choose as next steps to see the dream become a reality. Who might you consult with who's done something similar? Who might you recruit for your dream team to help you pull it off? What roles are needed for the team for you to be able to experience your dream? I love what John Maxwell says, the bigger your dream, the bigger your team. So think outside of the box. Don't just think about what God is calling you to do. Think about a team that God wants to put together using you as a motivating factor. Do you have job descriptions? Do you have a mission statement? Proverbs 19:2 says, desire without knowledge is not good, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses the way. So do your homework. Interview people who are already doing what you are considering. Read books on the topic. Find retired people who are successful in that field. After you've asked God for his assignment and you've defined your current reality and you've assessed the potential options in front of you, the fourth is that you need to consult the wise. Proverbs 12:15 says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Did you hear that? Rick Warren is right when he says, it is wise to learn from experience. It is wiser to learn from the experience of others. Frankly, I don't have time to make all the mistakes myself in life. If I have to learn everything by trial and error, I'll never learn it fast enough. It's wiser to learn from the mistakes of others. Verily, verily. So learn to ask good questions of those who have gone where you want to go. What did they do right? What did they do wrong? What would they do differently? What was their biggest obstacle? Proverbs 18:15 says, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So seek out advice. Don't just head out wishy-wishy, dreamy into the future without really thinking about what you're doing and where you're going. The fifth step is to prioritize your options. Once you've thought about all these different options and sought out counsel and tried to figure out what the best path is, you need to prioritize. As Greg McKeown says in his book, Essentialism, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. So that's a decision that you have to make. Determine your target. Start with the end in mind. Then write out all the steps necessary to hit your target. Construct a mind map. Then figure out what others can help you with and what only you can do. Then make a list of priorities for making assignments and delegating everything else to your team. I love what Dawson Trotman said. He says, I purposed never to do anything that others could or would do when there is so much of importance to be done that others could or would not do. See, those are priorities. If nobody else can do it and I can, then I better focus on those things and give everything else away. Focus on the highest priority items and delegate everything else so that you can be the most effective at what God is calling you to do. Determine your aim, your focus. A magnifying glass can start a fire if you focus the sunlight and are patient enough to stay still long enough. Proverbs 17:24 says, an intelligent person aims at wise action, but a fool starts off in many directions. There it is. Okay, step number 6 in realizing your dream is you need to count the cost. No one's ever been 100% successful in whatever it is that they set out to do. At least that's been my experience. Luke 14:28 says, for which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Everything valuable has a cost. Every great idea quickly degenerates into hard work. Did you hear that? Let me say it again. Every great idea quickly degenerates into hard work. God's divine purpose for you lies between your greatest passion and the world's greatest need. The word passion at its deepest meaning has to do with something that is worth experiencing pain. That's why the title of that movie, The Passion of the Christ, illustrates this concept so aptly. Jesus set his focus on rescuing us from sin. He was willing to go through the excruciating pain of the cross for us. So count the cost and know that any dream worthwhile is going to cost you. You know, today I coach pastors and missionaries and Christian businessmen, and I love it. And people are always asking me if I'm retired. No, I'm not retired. I'm just reassigned. Am I working at a church? No. Am I working for a man? No. But I've always been working for an audience of one. So whether I have an earthly boss or not, that doesn't really matter. I just have even greater freedom now to make sure that I'm doing what God is calling me to do. And so look at this Venn diagram where your greatest passion meets the world's greatest need. What would you put in between those two? How would you answer that question for yourself? What are you passionate about? What's the world's greatest need? Your dream from God is probably going to fit in there somewhere. And then I love this statement: a vision without a task makes a visionary. It's just wishy-wishy, dreamy. But a task without a vision is drudgery. It's an assignment. But you combine those two, a vision with a task. Now that makes a missionary. Number 7, anticipate obstacles. You might have this great dream that you got from God, but you need to know that there's going to be obstacles standing in your way. As an intern, I was assigned to administer a summer camp for 300 students. I planned the schedule for worship, for the guest speakers, for the games, for the baptisms, for everything that went into the camp, transportation, food. Then I put together an administrative worksheet to organize the long list of tasks that needed to be delegated to this army of volunteers who would make the camp a success. I, of course, planned the perfect camp experience. Then my boss kind of fouled things up in one sense. He asked me to list all the things that could go wrong. Well, nothing's going to go wrong. But what if a bus load of kids broke down on the way? What if a student needs to be sent home for disciplinary reasons? What if it rains? What if a student breaks a leg and needs to be taken to the hospital? What if a camp septic system backs up and sewer flows into the meeting room? Well, those are all things that I have experienced at camps, and it's good to be prepared for them. So it is important to have a plan for those unexpected detours. If nothing goes wrong, then running a camp of 300 high school students is just taking a vacation with 300 students. What's more enjoyable than that? Luke 14:31 says, "Or what king going out to encounter another king in war will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? What are the obstacles standing in your way? Are you outnumbered? Can you overcome the odds with the help of God? Dwight Eisenhower once said, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." That sounds like an oxymoron at first. Once the war breaks out, your old plans are worthless in facing the new challenges. But the previous planning was preparation for addressing the unexpected disasters. Expect the best, but plan for the worst. This is what it means to be prepared. Every crisis is a ministry opportunity if you're prepared in advance. Why are you surprised when the enemy is launching anti-aircraft missiles at you? Stay focused on the target and act, don't react. Paul understood that with a door of opportunity, he could expect opposition. 1 Corinthians 16:9, "For a wide door for effective work is open to me, and there are many adversaries." Did you get that? When you stumble, make sure you're stumbling forward. I love what Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed 10,000 times. I have successfully found 10,000 ways that will not work." Proverbs 22:3, the Message Bible, "The prudent person sees trouble coming and ducks. A simpleton walks in blindly and is clobbered." The obstacles are the way, so don't be blindsided. And the final 8th step of experiencing your God-sized vision is that you have to step out by faith. Hebrews 10:38 and 39 says, "But my righteous one shall live by faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who have faith and preserve their souls." Inch by inch, anything's a cinch. Yard by yard, everything's hard. After all, by perseverance, the snail made it on the ark. So take initiative, do something, have some action to your plans. Emotion is no substitute for action, but you know what? Action is no substitute for production. But then too, production is no substitute for reproduction. So multiply what you're trying to do, multiply your dream for the glory of God. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, He's the one who will keep you on track. So commit to stepping out by faith. Peter walked on the water. Like Peter, keep your eyes on Jesus and step out by faith. The longest journey begins with one step. Proverbs 16:3, commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. I look forward to hearing from you on the dreams that God has allowed you to experience and to realize by His favor, by His grace, and for His glory. So next week, we're going to talk about 5 dream killers. I like to say that some people are fire extinguishers with faces on. Have you met them? But we're going to talk about them next week. So before then, be sure and subscribe to this podcast and be sure and ring the bell so that you'll be notified when the next one comes out. God's best to you. Bye for now.